Hello everyone. It's been like maybe a week or two since I made a video about a theory on media. So I'm going to do it again, but today it's going to be about David Gauntlet's theory of identity. Identity decoding. The idea that media products provide us with distinct tools, so symbolic, visual, um, dialogue, etc. So anything that you can visually see um, is what is decodable, and that there are distinct tools, like I just mentioned, that help you to do that. So if we look at this side image for a second, for example, the symbolic code of the woman hugging the washing product, what does that demonstrate? Well, that demonstrates that perhaps in accordance of the historical context of that time, which was, quasi-patriarchal male dominance, some could say that this very image itself is portraying that, mirroring this kind of dominance that men had um, back in the day. To analyze text, images related to identity. Identity is something interesting because it's it's not as simple as it looks. Because according to David Gauntlet, identity is not actually something that is what you see. It's not really a denotation. You don't look at someone and say, "Oh, I know his identity." What he's saying is that identity itself is actually just what the media is reflecting. The media isn't creating these identities, it's merely reflecting them, as will be explained in a minute. Identity is not a representation encoded by the media, rather it's just a reflection, like I just said, of what these products, like for example, are projecting. For example, I mentioned this earlier, but Tide reflecting traditional conservative masculine dominated reflections of female representation. So again, female representation is not created by this, for example, media product, Tide. It's merely reflected by it. And that reflection is, again, like we just established, male dominance and female, being obedient and being housewives, etc., etc. The historical context of that time, of course. Media is not straightforward anymore. So David Gauntlet also argues that the idea that the media no longer conveys singular straightforward messages due to diverse representation, as it's not so black and white anymore, where we would typically only see male or female representations. So essentially what he's arguing is the following. It's not black and white. Now some of you may ask, what do I mean by that? I'll tell you. It's not straightforward. There's not one singular representation. You're not just looking at how females are represented, because that's traditional, that's something that is pragmatic. We've seen that throughout history. Female representation, male representation. It's not like that anymore. Now it's much more diverse. You look at Asian representation, black representation, LGBTQ plus representation, religious representation, and the list goes on. House ownership, etc. Digital convergence has a part to play in this. Now, this one's really important because without the iPhone, without the iPad, these diverse people wouldn't really be able to interact with each other on the scale that they're doing now. You could do that back then, sure. Everyone can do that back then. You can send letters, you can interact with someone physically, you can take an airplane, you can say hi to your neighbor. But digital convergence has enhanced that effect massively. Why? Because of social media and the internet. So if you look at Facebook, for example, not every single Facebook user is going to be white middle class. There's going to be black people, and black people are going to be able to have the option to interact with white people. Likewise, Asians will be able to interact with LGBTQ plus community members, demonstrating that digital convergence brings all these different representations, quote unquote, highlight the word representations, together, making it easier, well, not making it easier, but essentially making it not straightforward, making it diverse, as we've just established. The circulation of diverse messages at instantaneous speed. So again, courtesy of the internet, you press one button and boom, messages are sent. A message could reach anyone. That person may have a different identity to you. If you want a simple definition, it's just coded messages. So meanings that, the producer puts it intentional or unintentional in the product. It's more diverse in the modern world. So because we're in 2023, immigration, social media, etc., so on and so forth, globalization, that's a key thing to remember. Globalization. These representations are brought together, meaning it's no longer straightforward. So how could the theory of identity by David Gauntlet be used in this essay? So what would he say about the agenda of any essay question? I'm not going to read out the sentence starters. It's going to get repetitive. Repetition, Steve Neal. Calm down. Essentially, the key ideas that you can refer to are messages are conveyed in a more diverse manner, and we've went a bit more into detail earlier, but it's over here. There are tools that the audience can use to decode encoded meanings, and these meanings are usually centered around representations. So if we see meanings, think about it from a representational perspective. What does it mean if for example, middle class white woman is at home and she's hugging a washing product? What does it mean? What could it mean, actually? That's a better question. Or if you look at a film poster, if you look at, for example, of the Vampire, what does that mean? Well, on the right hand side, there's a man dominating woman physically. On the left hand side, it's a woman dominating a man. What could that mean? Political balance, or masculinity versus femininity, perhaps a binary opposition. Who knows? That's up to you guys to decide, depending on how you look at it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the theory of identity. I think this video was pretty informative. If it helped you out, tell me in the comment section below. And I think I'll be making more of these because I want to finish all of the theories. Because I did say I was going to make a video about how to structure your paragraphs and some essay practice questions.